What's the difference between a fixed fee divorce and an hourly divorce?
Great question. Fixed fee is exactly.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I have a very special guest with me today. I have attorney Nikole Messerschmidt. Nikole is a senior partner in our Madison office. And Nikole, you've been with Sterling for a number of years. How long have you been with us?
Yeah, I think it'll be 8 years this fall, I think.
And we are lucky to have you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for
We
having me.
You bet. We are going to talk about something that I would say comes up in just about every single one of our consultations, and that is comparing fixed fee divorce services to that of hourly billing. And we get these questions a lot about, which process is going to be better for me, which one might save me money, what's the differences? And I think it would be really helpful for just general listeners to understand, because of course at Sterling we do fixed fee, all of our cases. And that's surprising to some people. We don't bill by the hour, and people want to know, why are we doing that? How is it different than the hourly attorney? So let's dig into that today. And maybe just start by telling us, Nikole, like, what's the difference between a fixed fee divorce and an hourly divorce?
Yeah, great question. Fixed fee is exactly probably what you would assume it would be, a flat fee, right? A set fee based on your case and facts and circumstances, so that you know kind of A to Z of your case what the full cost would be. As far as hourly billing goes, most people understand that as a certain hourly rate charged by either the attorney or a paralegal, for example, operating on their case. And then every time either of those people or anyone at the firm, for example, touches their case, they get charged for that. And very often, people in an hourly billing firm won't be able to tell a client, even at an initial consultation, how much your divorce case is going to cost, because they don't really know how your case will proceed through the courts, right? How long it will take, what they will need to do, what motions might come up, etc. So instead of understanding that certainty of how much is going to cost them from start to finish, they just get billed, right? On a probably monthly basis, I would imagine, more often than not.
Yeah. And so are you having that conversation with clients right up front? Like, when are you having that chat about flat fee versus hourly billing?
Yeah, great question. I think it's important to have it right up front during the initial consultation so the client can make the decision that best fits their budget and needs moving forward. I mean, fixed fee, of course, in my opinion, because I work in it, right, is really great for clients and are able to, again, have certainty for their fees so they can be able to better plan and budget for what their case might entail moving forward. Even if it doesn't get all the way to trial, for example, they'll know what that cost is should they get there, so they can be better prepare and plan for that cost if it got to that point. But obviously not every case is a great fit for fixed fee, and sometimes hourly billing is what an individual needs, and that's okay too. We just want to make sure that they understand the differences so that they can better decide for them and their set of circumstances what they would prefer in order to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, so I've been with Sterling now for almost 11 years. And before that, I was with a different firm for about 7 years where I was doing hourly. And you're right, every single consultation at my prior firm, the very first consultation, every consultation, it was the same question. So what is this going to cost me? And I wasn't being coy. I wasn't trying to beat around the bush, but my very honest and accurate response was, I don't know. It depends. It depends. Are you a reasonable person? Is your spouse a reasonable person? Is your spouse going to hire a reasonable attorney? What county are we in? Like, how many court appearances? Like, the honest to God answer was, I don't know. It depends. Whereas with flat fee, you give them a number. It's like, it may not be a number that at the end of the day they want to hear, because, right, like, you get what you pay for, but they hear it and they know it. Yeah, I think it's an important conversation that we have, and we can give that answer to them up front. You made a comment that I want to come, touch back on, which was your case may not be right for flat fee or fixed fee. Tell me more about that. Like when you're meeting with a client in an initial consultation, have you ever had to make that determination? Like, look, you just don't have a good case for fixed fee, and how did you make that determination?
Yeah, certainly. It's definitely difficult, right? And obviously, I'd never want to turn people away, but I feel like at least here at Sterling, we operate on like fairness and reasonableness and honesty, right? And I don't want to take someone's case if it's not a good fit for our fixed fee model, right? Sometimes if cases are very complex and they have a lot of different moving parts where it's very difficult to make an accurate prediction of how their case is going to navigate through the legal system and things like that. Maybe there's like a pending criminal action that doesn't have a resolution yet that will affect the case. The other bigger financial issues, right? It really just depends. But sometimes because there's so many complex issues, if we were to give them a quote for those services, it would likely be so astronomical that, you know, the costs would be very jarring for them to hear. And maybe by going to an hourly billing so they can actually see, is that something that they'll have to tackle? If not, they're getting, at least billed on an hourly basis so they can see that play out, I think is a little bit easier and better for them, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah. So I think what you're saying is in these very complicated divorces where there may be a lots of twists and turns and unknowns that we may have to tackle or we may not have to tackle in quoting a flat fee, we're probably going to assume in order to protect the firm and to make sure that we're capturing our value, we may have to assume that we're doing that work, and that's going to result in a higher quote, and we don't want the clients overpaying, right? Like we want
Right.
this to be a fair number to the firm, we want it to be a fair number to the client. And so there's going to be these rare circumstances. And would you agree it's rare? Would you say that's like an fairly not common outcome where we say, I'm sorry, it's not a good fit?
Yeah, totally. I don't think I have it come up very often. Maybe other firms that do fixed fee might see it, and maybe it's just area based too. But yeah, I would agree that it's very rare for me to be able to make that determination. But of course, if it does come up, I'm obviously informing the client. So again, as I mentioned before, they're in the best position to be able to decide how they want to move forward. I've had people say, I totally understand, Nikole. Thank you so much for being honest, but they still want to go with our firm, even if that cost is astronomical. I think people just appreciate the upfront honesty, right? That you can provide to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's spot on. So, what are some misconceptions about flat fee, about hourly billing? People come in with assumptions.
There's so many. I feel like the couple that come to mind right away, at least for flat fee, is that it's going to be cheaper, right? Like that may not be the case, especially, I mean, our firm is well recognized in the area and we are good at what we do and we have great attorneys. So it's not going to be cheap, but you're going to know that if you're paying whatever the cost may be for your case, that you're getting good representation moving forward. I think that's a misconception. On the other flip side of things, right? Sometimes people think that in an hourly billing sense, they know exactly what they're getting, right, when they get billed. I think that that's probably a misconception too. Sometimes the bills that people get, they are hard to decipher, they don't understand. Or again, I think it's very jarring to see, again, as I mentioned before, right? Like every time someone even touches their case, small, bigger, anywhere in between, they're getting charged for it. And again, that's a lot sometimes for people to take in. And when they are paying a retainer up front, maybe it's $5,000 to start their case, people think that, oh, that's going to cover everything and that's really cheap and I'm going to go for that instead of this fixed fee, right? Only for it to be the first hearing and that is used up and they're already knocking on the person's door, calling them up, hey, hey, we need more money.
Yes, 100%. I have had that so many times with clients where they didn't understand that a retainer was simply a deposit, an initial deposit, that's likely to cover a fraction of their case. It's not, a comprehensive fee? Because I get that a lot. And, when I have a consultation and I'll quote the flat fee and they say, "Whoa, well, I met with another attorney and their retainer was like 3,500. Why is your fee so much higher?" And I say, "Well, because that retainer is certainly not being advertised. It's not guaranteed to cover your case, even more than maybe a month. That may be insufficient to cover your first months of billable time, maybe 2 months." But I think people are a little confused about what, in fact, a retainer is. It has nothing to do with guaranteed costs of service.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know if you've probably experienced this too, but usually that's when you see people come to our firm a lot of times is they start maybe with hourly billing and they didn't realize that, that initial retainer wasn't full representation and that got used up so fast that they wanted more of a certainty, right, in their fee, regardless of what that fee is, so that they know that this set fee that you're giving them covers a period of time, right, and all the work completed within there. And I think that's usually a big shift that we see if people are coming from hourly to our fixed fee firm.
Absolutely. Yes, I have seen that. People get very surprised and say, "You know what? I was surprised at my first 2 months. My retainer's gone, and I don't want the uncertainty." So, when you talk to a client about flat fee, like, how do you describe upsides? What are some advantages of a flat fee?
Yeah, well, as we mentioned, fee certainty, right? You can better plan and predict and understand what that cost is going to be up front. So you know when the next fee will hit, what if your case continues to be contested, what that fee will be once you get to a trial, for example. I think that's helpful. Again, regardless of cost, they already know that cost up front so they can continue to prepare, especially if their case moves on forward and they're having conversations with their attorney of like, this is going to likely go to trial. Maybe they know that well in advance and they're gearing up for that so they can better, save their money to be able to afford that instead of not having an attorney at the end. I also think like open communication is the best part about fixed fee, in my opinion, um, especially in family law, because that's what we do, right? Like communication with your attorney, between attorney and client is really important. And I don't want my clients to be hesitant of reaching out to me like, "Ooh, is this really important? Should I ask this question? Is it really worth me sending an email?" Because the fear of getting charged, zero point 0.2 billable hours or more, right, for that email that they're just checking in with with any fixed fee, it allows for just that freedom to be able to reach out without that fear of additional cost associated with that question.
Do we send itemized bills?
We do not. No.
So, in fairness, right? I mean, I think it could be argued one disadvantage of flat fees, if you're a person who needs that express understanding of I want to know exactly what was done, when it was done, how much time was spent, where those dollars are going. Reasonably speaking, that could be an argument against fixed fee, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I also think that's personal preference, right? And if that's that person's personal preference, then that's okay. Like that's why there's hourly billing and fixed fee. There's plenty of options to choose from, and that person should go with who they feel comfortable, both on a personal level and connection in that consult, but also what best suits their budget and their finances.
So let's do some key tips here. When you have, there's people out here listening who are contemplating here. They are thinking about scheduling that consultation. When it comes to dealing with the costs or fee structure, what tips do you have for our listeners out there?
It seems simple, but ask questions, right? The more questions you ask, the more understanding you will get. And if the attorney is being cagey about their responses, like maybe that's not a great fit, right? Ask questions to understand what's included in the fee, how fees work, who's working on your case, et cetera. I think will help alleviate any concerns going into whether or not that firm is a right fit for that client.
It is simple advice, but it's great advice. I think people maybe are uncomfortable talking about bills. It usually comes at the end of the consultation. We go through this
Always.
conversation about deep personal issues involved in a marriage, and then it's a little squirmy, and it's like, "So, can I ask about your fee structure? How much is this going to cost?" it's just for many people an uncomfortable discussion to have and to ask about. But I want to encourage everybody out there, ask the questions, know what you are buying, and know that you're comfortable with it, whether that, we're not the only flat fee firm out there. And so the other flat fee firms that are doing this is make sure you know what's included in that agreement, a detailed understanding of this is what I'm paying for and this is what I'm getting. And that's going to give you some comfort. And if you're somebody who wants that very detailed monthly itemized bill, then flat fee is probably not going to be a good fit for you.
Right. I was going to say, you're not going to go to a car dealership, right, and just buy a car outright. You're going to ask questions about it to be able to get to know what's the best fit for you, right? So I know it's not apples to apples comparison, but it does correlate very well in terms of, any product or service you're wanting to buy or engage in, just ask the question.
Yep. Buyer beware, and consumers making smart choices. So this was great. Thank you so much, Nikole. There's a lot that goes into this decision for, our listeners out there who are thinking about a divorce. So breaking this down is really helpful, and I appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Understanding the cost of divorce is one thing, but knowing what your house is worth, well, that's where things can get even trickier. Real estate is often the biggest asset in a divorce, and getting the value wrong can derail everything. In our next episode, we break down exactly how to handle real estate valuations the right way.